Steve, an alcoholic addict, and full of fear. But it's funny, sitting down here is I'm feeling a bit more relaxed now. I just hope I deliver a good message, you know, and I'll explain what it was like, what I've done to get here, and what it's like today, you know. And yeah, Steve, an alcoholic. I'm the youngest of three. There was an awful lot of trauma in my childhood, and I kept it all internally, you know. So even though my brother and my sister experienced the same trauma, we all handled it completely differently. We all ended up in addiction, but I was a bit more expressive in my behaviours, and my brother's a quiet man, my sister's a quiet girl, you know. And I remember my first drink and the chemical reaction to it, you know, as I've never had much confidence, you know, low self-worth. Wasn't very nurtured as a kid. That was missing in my childhood a lot, is the nurturing side of my upbringing, because my mum was battling this illness as well, you know, and my mum couldn't deal with life emotionally, you know, and the house was full of alcohol and unpredictable behaviours and beatings and stuff like that. And I know that, you know, them beatings come from a place of fear for her. She didn't know how to deal with it. And yeah, so my first reaction to alcohol was one, what the fuck is going on here? You know, and I started coming out of myself, and started getting a bit cheeky, and I started drawing people into my company, and people wanted to hang about with me, you know. And I was a school clown, you know, because I didn't have the confidence academically, you know. I didn't feel I belonged. I could compete in the classroom with other kids, so I was the clown. And it brought me a lot of attention, and I loved it, you know. And a few times being suspended and stuff like that, you know. But from that first drink at the age of 13, I'd start drinking regularly at the weekends, go down the park. And I remember my first spliff. Every drug that I've done, I've had a bad reaction to, apart from alcohol. So when I had my first spliff around the age of 15, we called it, in London, we call it having a whitey. I was didn't like it at all. So I stayed away from it. So alcohol predominantly became my choice. And I just got to the age I was, you know, I got into the pubs. And I loved the pub scene. I just loved it because it, you know, it took me away from me. But, you know, wherever I was going, my anger was coming with me, you know. And, you know, I got myself into some situations, you know. Before I had my first drink, I was quite, you know, I was bullied a lot. And the alcohol gave me the confidence to stand up to my bullies. You know, my head turned around and says, well, if I'm going to get a kick in, I may as well get a kick in, try and back, you know. And it brought some results, and I kept that with me, you know. And what I didn't realise is I was turning into a person that I didn't want to be. You know, I didn't want to be that person, you know. And, you know, I've managed to hold down, get a job from school. I've done work experience in this building company, and then they offered me an apprenticeship when I left school. So I was carpentry and joinery for 3 years, which qualified at. You know, that was my first big achievement. But every weekend I was going out to the pub scene, and Monday morning I was broke. You know, I was asking the parents for a sub, you know, and I had these great ambitions, but I could never deliver them. I could never, you know, get to them. You know, the drink always came first. And I started in a lovely relationship, and relationships never worked. And in 96, and I remember it being 96 because it was the Euros, and it was a fantastic year for England. And the pub scene was fantastic, loved it. And I met this lovely girl, and in 97, you know, we had a baby boy. But through that time, that period for her dropping birth, like, you know, I'd still be going out at weekends, I'd still be selfish, you know, I wouldn't put her needs first. You know, that calling for the pub was too much. You know, I'd always make false promises of, no, don't worry, love, I wouldn't, you know, I'm not going to drink. And I managed to hold it down from Monday to the Friday, and I'd be the weekend drinker, you know, and son was born, and I managed to hold the relationship together for a couple of years, but the drinking was taking its toll. You know, she had to put our son forward. You know, she had to think about him first, and the best thing she ever did, she left me. She left me in '99, and that's when my true progression started. You know, I started dabbling with other drugs, and I just gave up. And I had this. I thought my best thinking is the boy's better off without me, which he was. He was. I know that today. You know, and that's the one thing recovery's given me. He's given me peace around that. My son was better off without me, and she's done a remarkable job. And you know, I remember being suicidal, and you know, I didn't want to live this way. I didn't want to feel this way. I was forever changing the way I was feeling. You know, I was just a hot mess. So I put my hand up for treatment in 2005, and it's the first time I got introduced to fellowship. And I remember this guy. I remember my first share, and he told my story. He came from the same neighbourhood as me, and he told my story, and my head went thinking, this geezer's got a script of my life, because he was explaining everything that he'd been through that I'd also gone through. So I stuck with the meetings and all that, but I didn't take anything in. I obviously wasn't in enough pain, and I was in a treatment centre for 6 months, and I was sitting with 16 people doing therapy with 16 people I didn't like, and they probably didn't like me. But I come out of that treatment centre thinking, well, I ain't lost my temper once, I'm doing good. You know, I haven't hurt anyone, no one's hurt me, it's all good. And I had no defence against the first drink. And of course I went full flight, and it was, you know, I'm now doing drugs that I've never tried before. Cocaine, you know, ketamine. I liked it, but my drug of choice was always alcohol, and you know, as the years progressed, I was losing sight, you know, of my family, what I was doing to my family. You know, I remember being in my flat one night, and it was pissing from the heaven. It was a cold winter's night, and I had a neighbour that lived on the same road as me, and he used to serve up the crack. And I've left the TV on, I've got the spliff in the airplay, I've got the can on the table. It's all nice and cosy. I've left to go down to his house to use with him. And when I came back, I saw a note on the table, and you know, someone's been in here. You know, and it was a note from my mum calling me a CUNT, because she was worried about my welfare. So she come and done a welfare check. You know, I took that woman's safety, her peace of mind. You know, absolutely, completely annihilated her peace of mind. And she was trying, and she got sober. You know, my mum died in sobriety, and you know, I absolutely riddled every time she tried to get sober. I would sabotage it with my own behaviours, you know. And I started hitting the crack really hard after she passed away in 2013. And what I didn't realise is what comes with crack is fucking crack psychosis. And I got it bad. You know, I've always had a mentality where I'd be in fear. I'd have fear of a situation or a person, but I wouldn't be scared to not face it. Crack cocaine stopped me from leaving my house. You know, I remember a lad doing a share in Pool Hill when I was about 2 years in, and I forgot all about it, and he mentioned about how he used to turn his TV down and say, oh, my TV's too loud. And then he'd turn around and say, my breathing's too loud, stop breathing. And it was fucking horrendous, and it took me back there, you know. And other stuff, I lost an awful lot of weight, and I was constantly at my friend's house because he was a dealer, and he liked me being around there. So he'd bring me into the fold, you know, and it was okay. And with the crack psychosis, I was okay with it as long as I was in company. The moment I was alone, it would have me. These thoughts and everything would come in, and it used to terrify me. So I used to just try and beg him, not beg him as such because I didn't want to come across as needy. I still wanted to keep that, you know. I used to, you know, manipulate to stay around these all the time, you know, to use and to be in the company and stuff like that, you know. And everyone knows, I don't know, the crack house is not a very nice place to be. It can get very dark very quick. And it did, and one night there was a knife fight, and it went off. One lad got his throat cut. Someone tried to cut me. But I managed to get out of the house, and I had to get through 3 doors to get to the street. And thankfully, the neighbour that heard all the screaming and shouting called the police. Now, I didn't use a weapon, I didn't throw a hand, I didn't do anything, I just got out of there. And only that realisation, and I'll come to it later on down the line, of, you know, a higher power being looked after. You know, and the insanity of it, we all got nicked. Thankfully, the lad that got his throat cut wasn't too bad. It was just kind of like a superficial wound. The insanity of me went back to his house that night and had another use up, you know. And after that, I spoke to my sister. My sister was asking me questions like, you know, I've never had a good relationship with my sister. She didn't trust me. She didn't trust me with my behaviours around her kids, the aggressive nature that I had, you know, and she just didn't trust me. You know, and she was right to as well, you know, because every time she's tried to help me out, I've thrown it back in her face. My behaviours would let me down, you know, and her red flags would go up and say, no, you can't be around here, mate, you know. But as I was coming to the end of my using, my sister stood up. She was there for me, you know. She stepped up to the plate, and my dad was asking a lot of questions, like, why are you losing the weight? What's going on? And everything like that. I think I lost when I came down to Bournemouth, I was about 9 stone. And I've always been ripped, and that's a joke. I've always been, you know, a fat kid, you know, and I'm okay with that. You know, and I was all right with that. And so my sister started asking questions, and she took me to the doctors. And the doctor weighed me, and I started getting honest about the psychosis that I was experiencing. And he wanted to section me that day, and I begged and pleading with him, and I'm blagging it and all that sort of stuff. And I convinced him that my brother and sister are outside with my niece. They'll take me to the hospital. It's okay, you don't need to ring an ambulance or anything like that. And I went about my business. And then I got a letter in the post saying you need to go to Paddington Hospital for biopsy because of all the weight loss. And it come back that I had liver cirrhosis, and it would give me a certain amount of time to fucking live. And it said on the bottom liver cancer. And my initial thought for that was, thank fuck, this is soon going to be over. You know, I remember getting the bus back to my dad's, thinking, I'm not going to tell him. As soon as I walked over the threshold of his house and I looked him in the eyes, it came out. And I do not know what happened. I haven't got a clue, I can't explain it. But I managed to go back to my flat that night and I said a prayer. You know, I'm the sort of drug addict, I'm the sort of alcoholic that pulls their own teeth out because no dentist will touch me because I've missed so many appointments, you know, and end up having to pull my own teeth out, you know. And I said a prayer that night, and I managed to get to every appointment to help me to get to Bournemouth. And I managed to get to Bournemouth 5 months later, 28th of October, 2019, you know. And there was a big difference between my first drink and my last drink. I remember saying in the Oak pub up in Holdenhurst, hope I never fucking see you again. And when I walked over the threshold of the treatment centre, and you know, I must say that, you know, recovery's, you know, it's not a requirement, you know. It's so I walked over got over the threshold of the treatment centre, and they embraced me. They, you know, I walked in with 3 teeth. I had 3 teeth in my head, and this guy offered me a fucking apple. And it was the first time that I could live, you know, really laugh along with someone, you know, and yeah, fucking apple. And I knew I was in the right place, and he was buddying me for a month, but I remember dropping tears of gratitude. It was the first time I experienced any kind of gratitude, or I hit base with any kind of gratitude. I never knew what the word gratitude meant, you know. And I rang my family that night, told my brother, told my sister I've landed, I'm okay, everything's good. And you know, I got introduced, you know, I'd done a detox, and my first meeting was in Eastcliff, Monday night meeting, and they say, you know, look for someone that they got what you want. Well, everyone at that meeting had everything I wanted. Do you know what I mean? And I could just see this happy, joyous and free, you know. And I started paying attention, you know. And I remember the person that done the share. It was a female, and she used that poem, you know, Footsteps in the Sand, and it resonated with me. And that's when I started hitting bass. I started thinking, you know, I've been guided here. All the way through it all. I've been guided. It's kept me safe. And then I done my step 1 in treatment, and what were the consequences? You know, and the consequences, you know, were so severe that, you know, I shouldn't be here, you know. And I sat in that step 1 for about 6 weeks. I wanted to soak it up. And there's one thing having a step thing in your head, and there's another thing of having a step 1 and you're fucking in black and white where you're seeing it. You know, you're reading it back to yourself. You know, and I soaked that up. And as I'm reading it, of course, I've immediately gone to step 12. How can I pass on this message if I can't forgive myself? You know, and along comes step 2. And the word that stood out to me is restore to sanity. My step 1 tells me I'm nothing short of insane. Nothing short of it. And I don't mean behaviours, I mean just the way I was conducting my life. The way I was using, you know, and that's where the forgiveness started taking place. And I didn't have a strong. I found step 3 very difficult because I couldn't understand the concept of it. And it was explained to me. And, you know, I went along with it, but I still didn't understand it. I really didn't understand it. I was going along with it. I was doing the daily prayers, I was doing the nightly prayers. You know, I was doing the gratitude lists and all that. And this gentleman come my way. You know, I've now graduated from treatment, and this gentleman come my way, and he's helped me in the book. And this is how cunning and baffling this is. You know, we're going through the work, and we used to meet at Sprinkles, and used to take, because he used to work across the road, and he was the first sponsor I ever had. And I won't forget him. I just won't forget him. Because he's the one that really kind of He just got me linked up, and he plugged me in. And I remember him saying to me, have you recited the step 3 prayer? And I've gone, yeah. He's gone, yeah. I've gone, all right, mate. And it was a busy summer's day. We're at Sprinkles, the students all over the place and all that. He says, right, so we're going to get on the step, we're going to get on our hands and knees, and we're going to do the step 3 prayer in front of everyone. And he's gone like that. And he's like me, he doesn't want to be heard, he doesn't want to be seen, or he doesn't want to be embarrassed and all that sort of stuff, that public humiliation stuff. But this gentleman has got down on his hands and knees with me to do a step 3 prayer that I fucking lied about, saying that I knew how to do it. And I'm muttering and stuttering, and he's looked at me and I've looked at him and he's gone like that. And he went, right. So he's said a few words. He said, Steve, you've got to take it serious, mate. You're gonna pick up. You've got to take it serious. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought about that big. So off I trot. Started my step 4, and then COVID hit, and we had to separate. But this program is so amazing because another gentleman come into my life, and he managed to get me through the work, and I was doing all right. I was doing good, and I was trying to get in touch with my own spirit so I could align my spirit to a spirit of my higher power, and it was working. Daily actions led in the direction of God, and it was working. I was feeling good, but when we had that second lockdown, and no one's watching, my behaviours fucking came in again, and the lying started, the behaviours started, and I wasn't making myself accountable, and I picked up this sponsor led that sponsor when I gone through the work. I wanted a new experience. This is about a year later. I wanted a new experience, and through COVID, I was on this Zoom meeting, and I picked this gentleman that I liked. He was something like 14 years clean, and we started going through the work. But the more we're going through the work, the less I'm getting away from it. I'm coming well away from the program. I'm looking good on the surface, and inside I'm riddled. It's like when you're using, you're looking all right to the public, but inside you're crippled. Do you know what I mean? And that's how my recovery was, and that's my truth. And it was suggested to me that I get a sponsor in Bournemouth, which I did. There was a gentleman that I went to in the CA summer camp out, and I said, I'm in a bit of trouble. It was the first time I started getting honest. I said, I'm in a bit of trouble. He says, right, ring me. And he says, right. So I rang him. He says, what's going on? I said, no. I said, I'm all over the place with everything. And he says, you're doing your daily inventory. I went, no. It felt that big. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I wasn't doing what it says in the book. And then it was suggested to me to get a sponsor in Bournemouth, which I did. And this guy has fucking lit me up. He's proper lit me up. He's taken me back to basics. He's lit me up. I'm in love again with the program. I'm enjoying being me again. For a long time, I wasn't enjoying being me in recovery, and that's the power of that step 3. I wasn't doing step 3. That was missing. I wasn't handing stuff over. I wasn't being honest, and I had a light bulb moment when I was going through the book by myself. I had a light bulb moment, and it says, alcohol was my master and it had me lit. Well, if alcohol is my master, pain has got to be my teacher. And if I don't listen to the teacher, I'm going to go back to the master. I'll start getting back involved. I'll start getting back in the service. I'm living a decent life. I've made a few amends. I got a phone call. I'm working. I never worked for 20 years before I come into recovery. And I got a phone call at work one night. My stepfather had cancer, and when I say you know, my stepfather, I'm not talking about someone that's been there 5 minutes, I'm talking about a gentleman that's been by my mum's side for 45 years, you know, and I was told to get to London as quickly as possible. I was able to make a phone call, and I was able to get to the hospice, and I sang hallelujah to him as he took his last breath. You know, if that's not the gift of recovery, I don't know what is. You know, and I try to make a living amends every day. You know, and relationships are better than they've ever been. It's like that lay aside prayer, you know, so I can have a new experience. Or the experience I'm having now with my brother, my sister, my nieces, my nephews. It's all a new experience. I don't know how to put it into words apart from it's a complete new experience because I've never had this before. You know, and I sponsor men. I sponsor men now, and I like being the magic's in sponsoring men, going through the book with other men and letting them, you know, I can give them the benefit of my mistakes, you know, because a sponsor's not just about someone taking you through the work. It's about having a gentleman navigating you through life, because I didn't know how to do life. You know, I didn't know how to deal with life, you know, and I'm living my best life because of this program, and because, you know, I had that gift of desperation, and I listen. I'm teachable today, you know, and I follow the suggestions. You know, every day there was a time, you know, I got up out of bed, and this has only happened to me once in recovery. I got out of bed, and I thought, I'm going to have a cigarette and I'm going to have a coffee. Then my phone went, and it was quite a nasty phone call, and my reaction to it was not very nice. So I rang up my sponsor and I said, where do you think you went wrong there, Steve? And I said, what do you mean? I said, I just kind of, you know, treated as I got treated. He went, no, Steve. He says, you didn't pray, which means you're not in touch with you're not in touch, you know, you've woken up untreated. You know, and you haven't aligned yourself with your higher power, which means you've had no defense. So before I do anything in the morning, as soon as I get out of that bed, I hit my knees so I can get in touch with my character defects. You know, and I try and live in my assets today, because with character defects we have assets, and I try and live in my assets today. You know, and I move, my actions move me in the direction of my higher power. You know, and that's the difference. I'm no longer listening to my head. I'm no longer listening to my will. You know, and I'm doing what I'm told. I'm doing what I'm told because I'm very aware it's a daily reprieve. It's a daily reprieve. You know, contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual well-being. You know, and my actions determine my spirit. You know, and yeah, just full of gratitude today. I'll leave it there.
Thank you.